Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Sorry for keeping you guys a little longer. We're, just up here incredibly excited about what we just did. We added somebody, we talk about our culture, the pillars of our culture: smart, tough, competitive. And I think we added somebody who's, off the charts in all three. Incredibly dynamic player, adds range all over the field in the pass and in both phases, really. Knows the defense inside and out. Just an incredible player. He was one of our targets really starting in the teens, and you're kind of sweating it out there as it goes on. And, this was a great outcome for us. We looked at our situation at 12, and we kind of looked at our different scenarios if we picked a certain player versus, sort of the trade back and what we could get with the trade back. And we liked our options, and this was one of our good options, so we're excited that this came to fruition. Again, it was a cool moment. You get to call somebody, and I guess he didn't know. He introduced us. I said, "Hi, I'm Kwesi," and he still didn't really get it. I'm the general manager of the Vikings. He still didn't really get it. And I said, "Hey, we're a building full of dream chasers. You want to come chase dreams with us?" And he just like, "Why?" He starts yelling. So that was a great moment, something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. With that, any questions?
I guess just to go back to 12 and the whirlwind that was, did you feel you were close at all to picking a player, or did you know the whole time that you wanted to move back?
Again, you plan for every scenario. So we had, if this, then this, and there was a thought, to stay in the pick and make a selection, but we stuck to our plan. We had a really rigorous process coming into this, where we did a collaborative environment discussion with everybody in the building, and we kind of talked through it, and we knew why we did what we did. But when there's great players still left on the board, you understand it. But that's ultimately the decision we came to.
Going down 20 spots at any point, does that feel like a lot? Until you do the calculation.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you're just kind of looking at what and a lot of it's probabilistically. Hey, what could be there at the picks I'm trading to versus what am I giving up now? You got to sort of take it on faith that your calculations are right, and it came down right to the end. But that we were comfortable with what we were doing.
You see Lewis as a guy who could compete with that opening to start for Xavier Woods. You got Cam Bynum, obviously, too, and then obviously Harrison Smith is 33. Just how do you look at his role potentially in 2022 and moving forward?
Sure. Yeah, Cameron Bynum, first of all, is somebody we were really excited about. He's somebody we studied in Cleveland as a safety projection. And then when obviously I get to know this roster, and you're going into free agency, what needs do you think you have? And I'm looking at him like, hey, this guy has something in him. And so when we talked about this trade, we talked about the NFL and what it is now. And I got Ed Donatel and I got Mike Pettin in the lab, and they're going to figure out ways to use our depth, use their coverage skill sets, use them in a diversity of ways to get them on the field. Ultimately, it's about getting your best players on the field, and I think we'll be able to do that.
32 is a popular spot for teams to move up to get that fifth-year option. Did you have many calls, or did you think at all about moving back once more?
Yeah, there were calls. We considered everything that came to our door. There was a curveball thrown in right at the end that tested, your plan, so to speak. Everybody got a plan until they get hit in the face, right? That's what they say. But we stuck to our guns. It was cool. It was cool being in that room and people feeling the gravity of the moment. And he said, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is why, and everybody understood, and we, again, like I said, we moved as a unit, and we're happy about it, and we're excited to come in tomorrow and start all over again.
How do you address trade value when it's with a division team that you're playing twice, and how does that factor into what you're doing?
Certainly, that was a big thought. I won't lie. Brad and I first spoke earlier, and just hey, we have a good relationship. I don't know that this has to be something that we can't ever do deals. But we really looked at it as, hey, what is your outcome if we don't do this trade versus what is your outcome if you stay and pick? And ultimately, the division thing does come into it, but it also comes into, hey, they got to play the Minnesota Vikings and all the players we're going to get, and obviously we're going to go from there. There's also the possibility that, they have backups, right? So if we don't do the trade, there's odds that they could do the trade anyway. So you're kind of factoring in many things that could happen, and we did that, and ultimately we're happy with our decision.
When it comes to deciding on the trade value, lots of people have lots of different charts to decide whether you won or lost this one. I guess how do you go about figuring out which picks are worth what and how you make that deal?
I mean, it's the ultimate irony, right? The guy who used to calculate the charts himself now gets people arguing about charts. Again, it's really it's the same thing as economics. It's how happy are you in this outcome versus this outcome versus this outcome. You can talk about charts all you want. It's not like you call somebody if you were buying a house and you're saying, hey, it should be worth this. Well, they might not pay that, right? Something's worth it almost as much as somebody's willing to pay for it. So, we kind of went with this, and going into the process, we said, okay, what would our happiness level be if we did this trade versus staying versus this other trade? And we ultimately just came to our decision that way. That we use the chart as a guideline, but that's also just because everybody kind of uses it, and it is a type of thing. But we weren't necessarily looking to win points or this or that. We kind of look at the big picture and what it could be, what it ultimately might be in the end.
Circling back, you said there was a curveball at the end. What was the curveball?
I try not to, talk about every trade call that comes in, but just a trade offer that came in at the very last second that was something we considered, but ultimately we decided to keep the decision we made.
I mean, are you kind of surprised that there wasn't more aggressiveness from teams, especially in the quarterback situation, given there was only one taken at that point?
It only takes one, but it also takes, if that one doesn't show up, that's how these things can happen. We don't talk about quarterbacks with other teams, so I can't sit here and tell you that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a popular spot.
Yeah, it typically is. That's probably a better question for them, but it is a popular spot for that. But it didn't happen this year, and ultimately we were ready for it if it did.
So, given that there was still only the one, do you think tomorrow at the top of the second that's a prime spot where people? I mean, would you go into that? Given that you have a spot there, thinking that that's something that you're going to be hearing or be prepared to hear from other teams about?
My cell phone is always charged.
Okay.
Is that kind of an ideal spot though, 34, because it's almost like a new draft is starting, you're picking second, and you pretty much know just about who's going to be available.
That's the dynamic. I think a lot of times people reset their boards and things like that. Now it is the dynamic between the fifth-year option and then the second, and so that goes into a different thing. But yeah, that is the thought process behind that, and ultimately, again, we'll take the calls. We'll be ready to pick if it's not the case, and we'll be ready either way.
Is it tough that a division rival has now drafted a dynamic player in the draft like Jameson Williams, and now you guys are going to have to go against him for years?
Yeah, it's something you think about. I know me and Kevin talked about it. He was one of our favorite players in the draft. But we got a pretty bad dude on our team, and we can add other pieces on the other side. And they got to play the Minnesota Vikings. We don't got to play Jameson Williams. We got to play the Minnesota Vikings.
Any thought to taking him at 12?
We thought about, again, if you pick at 12, you got to have 12 names, right? So he was one of the persons we thought about, and ultimately we made the decision we made. But he's a really great player, and we're gonna have to bring our everything to beat him. But again, we're trying to put together the team that they'll have to bring everything to beat us.
The Packers have played a ton of dime defense over the past couple of years. Obviously, there's some experience on the staff with that. Did that enter the conversation about potentially taking a defensive back there?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, these are all conversations you have, and that's part of the great part about the collaboration we have. It's I'm not going to sit there and assume anything. I'm going to have him be in the discussion, know that he wants to be there, know what we have in this building already, and know that we can optimize them, because you don't make that pick unless you can really fully understand that value and realize it. So heavily involved in those situations, and we're ready. Again, we have guys that you talk about Cam Bynum and seeing like their coverage skill sets are incredible, right? So the ability, the flexibility that gives you is something we're excited about.
You mentioned that in Cleveland you had evaluated Bynum as a safety, obviously played cornerback in college. Does that versatility enter the conversation when you think about adding another safety to the room, potentially fielding dime packages?
Sure, absolutely. Again, exactly to your point, it gives the defense something to think about, right? Because of their coverage skill sets, they don't necessarily know a certain tell or something like that. So again, you always want versatile players. You always want great players, specifically types that can cover for other people. His range is so special. It allows people, people don't realize the safety position. The name is pretty indicative of what it is. It's getting guys to the ground, make them play from 1st and 10, and make them drive down the field. You can erase mistakes from that position, and that's somebody we think we've added.
His range, Lewis Cine.
Cine, yes, correct.
Thanks, everybody. Well, that's Coach O'Connell.